When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, they don't break down, they break apart. And what happens next isn't romance, regret, or redemption. It's ego survival at any cost. If this resonates with your experience, take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs clarity. Because understanding this dynamic is how you stop personalizing their chaos. When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, what they experience is not heartbreak in the way emotionally healthy people do. It is something far more destabilizing to their internal structure, a narcissistic injury. To understand this, you have to recognize that a narcissist's identity is not built on stable self-worth. It is constructed on external validation, admiration, attention, reassurance, compliance. The person who loved them unconditionally was not just a partner, they were a psychological stabilizer. They absorbed the narcissist's mood swings, forgave their transgressions, and reflected back an image of superiority and desirability. That reflection becomes part of the narcissist's fragile self-concept. When that person leaves, the narcissist is not grieving the loss of emotional intimacy. They are reacting to the collapse of that external support system. The loss punctures their grandiose self-image. It creates a crack in the illusion that they are irresistible, superior, or entitled to endless devotion. This is experienced as humiliation, exposure, and threat. It feels like being unmasked. Instead of sadness, the primary emotional reaction is injury to the ego, a sharp, intolerable sense that they have been rejected. Rejection is catastrophic for someone whose entire identity depends on being admired and chosen. The departure of someone who loved them deeply contradicts their internal narrative of control and superiority. It forces a question they cannot tolerate. If I am so exceptional, why did this person leave? Rather than sitting with that discomfort, their psyche goes into defense mode. The nervous system responds as if under attack. There may be rage, denial, obsessive rumination, or frantic attempts to restore contact. The injury is especially severe when the love was genuine and consistent because that kind of love provided steady validation. Its removal creates emotional withdrawal. The narcissist may feel empty, restless, agitated, or exposed, but they rarely interpret these sensations as grief. They interpret them as injustice. In their internal world, they were wronged, abandoned, disrespected. The focus remains on the wound to their ego, not the pain of losing a meaningful bond. After the initial shock of the narcissistic injury, the next dominant reaction is not reflection, it is narrative control. A narcissist cannot allow the story of the breakup to exist in a way that positions them as rejected, flawed, or abandoned. That version of events is too threatening to their fragile self-concept, so almost immediately they begin rewriting reality. This rewriting can happen internally and externally. Internally, they distort the meaning of the loss. Instead of acknowledging, I hurt someone who loved me and they left, the script becomes, they were too needy, they were unstable, they couldn't handle me, or I outgrew them. The goal is psychological anesthesia. If they can convince themselves that the person who left was defective or inferior, then the rejection no longer reflects on them. The injury is numbed by superiority. Externally, they may start managing the social narrative. They tell friends a version of events that casts them as the victim or the one who ended things. They may imply they were suffocated, misunderstood, or betrayed. This isn't always done with dramatic malice. Sometimes it is subtle reframing, but the purpose is the same: to preserve status and avoid shame. Public perception matters deeply because it feeds the supply system. If others see them as desirable and wronged, their ego regains stability. This rewriting process also protects them from self-examination. True accountability would require confronting uncomfortable truths, their emotional unavailability, manipulation, inconsistency, or entitlement. But self-reflection threatens the defensive structure that keeps their self-esteem intact. So distortion becomes a survival mechanism. What makes this particularly painful for the person who truly loved them is watching the relationship be minimized or misrepresented. The depth of connection is reduced to something trivial or problematic. Shared memories are reinterpreted through a colder lens. It can feel surreal, as though the history you experienced together has been edited. But this revisionism is not strength, it is defense. A narcissist cannot tolerate being the one who was left because it contradicts their internal myth of control. So they alter the storyline until it feels less like rejection and more like dominance, less like loss and more like choice. The third reaction often unfolds quickly after the narrative rewrite, hoovering. This is the attempt to pull the person back in, not necessarily because of love, insight, or growth, but because the narcissist feels the destabilizing effects of losing their primary source of validation. Hoovering can look persuasive, emotional, even convincing, but at its core, it is about restoring control. When someone who truly loved a narcissist leaves, it disrupts the narcissist's sense of power. They were accustomed to being pursued, forgiven, accommodated. The departure challenges their assumption that the other person will always stay. Hoovering becomes an effort to reestablish that dynamic. It may begin subtly, a casual message, a nostalgic memory, a checking-in text that appears harmless, or it can be dramatic, apologies, declarations of change, promises of therapy, sudden vulnerability. What makes hoovering confusing is that it often contains elements the other person longed to hear during the relationship. Accountability may appear, empathy may seem present, but the timing is critical. These insights typically surface only after the narcissist experiences the injury of loss. The motivation is not sustained transformation, it is relief from ego threat. Hoovering is also a test. The narcissist wants to see if they still have access. If you respond, if you soften, if you engage emotionally, it reassures them that their influence remains intact. Even anger can function as supply because it confirms emotional impact. Silence, however, is destabilizing. If hoovering succeeds and the person returns, the dynamic often resets. The initial charm may reappear briefly, but once the narcissist feels secure again, old patterns resurface. The urgency to change fades because the injury has been soothed. If hoovering fails, the narcissist may escalate, shifting into blame, hostility, or indifference. The attempt to regain control morphs into attempts to diminish or punish. Hoovering is not about reunion, it is about regulation. The narcissist seeks to quiet the internal chaos triggered by abandonment. Pulling you back is not about rebuilding love. It is about reestablishing emotional supply and restoring the illusion that they were never truly left. When hoovering fails, or when the narcissist realizes they cannot easily regain control, the reaction often shifts into rage. This rage is not random. It is a defensive explosion against shame. Losing someone who truly loved them forces a confrontation with inadequacy, and for a narcissist, shame is intolerable. Anger becomes the shield. This rage can be overt or covert. Overt rage looks like aggressive messages, insults, threats, or dramatic accusations. They may lash out, calling the person disloyal, selfish, cruel. The intensity can feel disproportionate, especially if the breakup was calm or respectful. But what you are witnessing is not anger about the relationship ending. It is fury at the wound to their ego. Being left feels like exposure, and exposure feels dangerous. Covert rage is quieter, but just as potent. It can show up as icy indifference, calculated silence, passive-aggressive remarks, or subtle sabotage. The narcissist may spread rumors, distort private details, or attempt to damage the other person's reputation. This is often referred to as a smear campaign. The goal is twofold: punish the one who left and regain superiority in the eyes of others. Rage also serves a psychological function. It converts vulnerability into power. Underneath the anger is humiliation. How could they reject me? But sitting with humiliation would require emotional maturity and self-reflection. Anger is easier. It feels strong. It feels active. It pushes the painful feeling outward instead of inward. For the person who truly loved them, this phase can be shocking. The warmth, charm, and connection that once existed seem to evaporate overnight, replaced by hostility. It creates cognitive dissonance. How can someone who claimed love now act with such cruelty? The answer lies in emotional regulation. The narcissist is not processing loss in a reflective way. They are fighting to protect a fragile self-image. Rage is an attempt to reassert dominance, to flip the narrative from "I was left" to "I am rejecting you." It is not grief, it is ego defense, activated when control can no longer be quietly restored. After the rage, or sometimes even alongside it, comes something that can feel especially disorienting to witness: the rapid replacement. The narcissist appears with someone new, quickly, confidently, sometimes almost theatrically. To the outside world, it may look like they've moved on effortlessly, but this reaction is not about love, it is about regulation. When a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, they lose a steady source of validation, attention, and emotional buffering. That absence creates internal emptiness. Many narcissists struggle with a chronic sense of inner void, a restless, uncomfortable feeling that they cannot soothe on their own. A new partner becomes a fast-acting solution. The novelty provides admiration, curiosity, and fresh idealization. It temporarily patches the wound. The speed of replacement is often proportional to the depth of injury. The more meaningful the prior attachment, the more urgent the need to prove desirability. The new relationship functions as evidence. I am still wanted. I am still superior. I was not rejected. It is less about connection and more about optics, both internal and external. They want others to see that they are thriving. More importantly, they want to convince themselves. This phase frequently includes public displays of happiness, photos, posts, exaggerated affection. It can feel like a performance. For the person who truly loved them, this is deeply painful. It may trigger self-doubt. Did I ever matter? But the replacement does not erase the impact of the previous bond. It masks the discomfort of losing it. Because the new connection is built on unresolved injury, it often follows a familiar pattern. Idealization comes quickly. Intensity escalates fast. Promises may be grand. But since the underlying issues remain unaddressed, the cycle tends to repeat. The replacement is not proof that the narcissist did not care. It is proof that they cannot sit with emotional emptiness. Instead of grieving, they distract. Instead of reflecting, they attach. The new person becomes another mirror, one that reflects admiration strongly enough to quiet the echo of rejection. Another reaction that unfolds beneath the surface is obsessive rumination. While the narcissist may appear outwardly confident, distracted, or romantically reinvested elsewhere, internally there can be a looping preoccupation with the person who left. This rumination is not rooted in longing for emotional intimacy. It is rooted in the unresolved injury to their ego. When someone who truly loved them walks away, it disrupts the narcissist's sense of certainty. They are used to controlling the rhythm of attachment, deciding when to withdraw, when to charm, when to discard. Being left removes that control. The mind begins circling the event. How did this happen? What did they say to others? Are they happier without me? Have they replaced me? The thoughts are less about connection and more about status. This rumination often carries a competitive undertone. The narcissist may monitor social media, ask mutual acquaintances for updates, or subtly gather information. They are measuring impact. If the former partner appears to be thriving, it can reignite the injury. If the former partner seems distressed, it may soothe their ego. The focus remains on comparison and validation, not empathy. There is also an element of unfinished dominance. The narcissist may replay arguments, imagining better comebacks or ways they could have regained control. They may fantasize about scenarios where the former partner returns apologetically. These mental rehearsals temporarily restore a sense of power. At times, the rumination turns into intermittent contact, a message sent late at night, a sudden reaction to an old photo, a seemingly random check-in. These are not always calculated manipulations. Sometimes they are impulsive attempts to relieve the agitation of unresolved rejection. Silence from the former partner can intensify the obsession because it provides no emotional data. What makes this rumination distinct from healthy grief is its orientation. Healthy grief moves toward acceptance. Narcissistic rumination circles around pride, image, and control. The question is rarely, how did I contribute to this loss? It is more often, how do I restore my position? The mind keeps revisiting the rupture, not to heal it, but to reclaim superiority and quiet the sting of being left. As time passes and the initial reactions lose their intensity, another defense often appears: devaluation of the person who truly loved them. The narcissist begins mentally and verbally shrinking the significance of the relationship. Qualities that were once praised become criticized. Memories that once felt meaningful become trivialized. This is not a gradual change of perspective, it is a protective reconstruction. The purpose is emotional self-protection. If the person they lost was genuinely caring, patient, and devoted, then losing them suggests the narcissist made a mistake or was rejected for valid reasons. That realization threatens their self-image. To avoid it, they alter the value of what was lost. The partner becomes too sensitive, clingy, boring, or replaceable. By lowering the worth of the other person, the narcissist lowers the emotional cost of the loss. This devaluation may be shared with others. They recount selective memories that support their new narrative while omitting moments of closeness or support they once relied on. Listeners hear a simplified story where the narcissist appears relieved rather than affected. The repetition helps them believe it. Each retelling reinforces distance from vulnerability. Internally, the same process unfolds. Positive memories can feel uncomfortable because they highlight what is no longer accessible, so the mind edits them. Tender moments are reinterpreted as obligation. Loyalty becomes weakness. The deeper the original bond, the stronger the need to downgrade it, because acknowledging its importance would reopen the injury. For the person who loved them, hearing this shift can feel deeply invalidating. It may seem as though the shared experience has been erased, but the devaluation is not an objective reassessment. It is a psychological maneuver that converts loss into dismissal. If the relationship was never special, then its ending carries no personal meaning. Through this lens, the narcissist regains emotional balance. They move from being someone who lost love to someone who escaped mediocrity. The narrative restores pride and reduces the need to confront regret. What looks like indifference is often a carefully maintained defense against recognizing that they once had something stabilizing and could not sustain it. As time goes on and the emotional noise quiets, another deeper reaction emerges. The narcissist begins to feel an identity disturbance, not openly, not consciously in a reflective way, but internally something feels off. The person who truly loved them played a stabilizing psychological role. They provided consistent validation, emotional predictability, and a reliable mirror. Without that mirror, the narcissist's sense of self becomes less anchored. Unlike healthy individuals who have an internalized sense of worth, the narcissist relies heavily on external regulation. The partner who loved them knew their habits, tolerated their moods, and adjusted to their needs. That consistency created a structure around their personality. When the relationship ends permanently, the structure disappears. The narcissist may still function socially, even confidently, but internally there is more restlessness, irritability, and dissatisfaction. They often don't label this as missing the person. Instead, life just feels less smooth. Interactions feel less affirming. New relationships require effort because the new person does not yet orbit them the same way. Small frustrations become bigger. Their tolerance for boredom drops. They may change routines, seek stimulation, or make impulsive decisions, trying to recreate the sense of emotional grounding they once had. This is why some narcissists periodically reappear long after the breakup. Not always because they consciously want the relationship back, but because the absence continues to echo. The person who loved them represented familiarity and regulation. Losing that creates a subtle instability that other sources of attention don't fully replace. What's important is that they rarely interpret this correctly. They don't conclude, "I lost someone meaningful and I need to grow." Instead, the feeling translates into restlessness with life itself. Jobs feel dull, people feel disappointing, environments feel limiting. The discomfort gets projected outward rather than examined inward. So beneath the visible reactions, the anger, replacement, dismissal, there can remain a quiet imbalance. The narcissist doesn't process it as grief, yet they continue reacting to the psychological absence of the person who once organized their emotional world. At the deepest level, when a narcissist loses someone who truly loved them, what is threatened is not just the relationship, it is their entire defensive identity structure. Narcissism is built as armor. Beneath the confidence, entitlement, and control lies a fragile core shaped by inadequacy, insecurity, and often early emotional wounds. The grandiosity is not strength, it is compensation. When someone offers consistent, genuine love, that love becomes integrated into the armor. It helps hold the structure together. When that person leaves, the loss does not simply remove companionship, it destabilizes the psychological scaffolding that was reinforcing the narcissist's inflated self-image. For a brief moment, sometimes only seconds, sometimes longer, they are confronted with a raw internal question. What if I am not who I believe I am? That question is intolerable. It brushes up against buried shame that has been avoided for years. This is why the reaction can feel disproportionate. The threat is existential. If someone who knew them closely, loved them deeply, and tolerated their flaws ultimately chose to walk away, it challenges the illusion of superiority and control. It exposes dependency, and dependency contradicts the narcissist's need to feel self-sufficient and dominant. Rather than integrate this moment into growth, most narcissists double down on defenses. They amplify grandiosity, seek louder admiration, or become more dismissive of vulnerability. The psyche works quickly to reseal the crack. Admitting fault would require dismantling the very structure that protects them from shame. In rare cases, profound loss can trigger self-awareness, but that requires sustained introspection and accountability, capacities that are underdeveloped in entrenched narcissism. More commonly, the individual rebuilds the armor thicker than before. So at its core, losing someone who truly loved them threatens exposure. Not exposure to others, but exposure to themselves. And because the false self must be protected at all costs, the reaction becomes about survival of identity, not preservation of love.